Live in Western Oregon, this is NBC 16 News at 6:30.
The strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier.
First at 6, President Trump swinging the stick, bombing nuclear sites before calling for peace in Iran, with Americans across the country taking to the streets in protest. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Tiffany Lewis. Trump, along with Israel, Ukraine, the UK, and other countries, are calling last night's airstrikes on Iran's nuclear facilities a successful effort to alleviate the threat the Islamic Republic of Iran poses, while also calling for peace and a return to diplomacy. Meanwhile, protests are erupting across the country, including right here in Eugene, as some lawmakers are calling the legality of the airstrikes into question.
Stop the bombing now, 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 now. One, we are the people.
An emergency rally took place in Eugene this Sunday. It kicked off around 2 p.m. outside the old federal building at 7th and Pearl. Organizers say the administration has now risked nuclear warfare, and they're calling on Congress to take action to prevent any further escalation. The rally was co-sponsored by the Pacific Green Party of Lane County, the Party for Socialism and Liberation, Planet versus Pentagon, and other local groups. About 100 people were in attendance. Now, members of Congress are reacting to President Trump's unilateral decision to bomb 3 of Iran's nuclear sites. We're seeing responses range from high praise to calls for impeachment, and not all lawmakers are falling in line with their parties. National correspondent Athra El-Nashar reports from Capitol Hill.
The Truth Social post heard round the world. President Trump announcing the U.S. bombed 3 of Iran's nuclear sites caught many in Congress by surprise. The bulk of the president's political allies applauding the move, which was done without authorization from Congress.
There's no doubt that because of the president's decisive action, we have severely damaged Iran's critical nuclear infrastructure.
House Speaker Mike Johnson, the president made the right call and did what he needed to do. 2 Democrats breaking from their party to voice support for the strikes, New Jersey Congressman Josh Gottheimer and Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania, who says this was the correct move by POTUS. Iran is the world's leading sponsor of terrorism and cannot have nuclear capabilities. A few in the GOP breaking from the president.
The Constitution requires Congress to weigh in on this. This was a bad move politically, but it's also just a bad move legally and constitutionally and policy-wise.
The president issuing this lengthy criticism of Massey, saying MAGA doesn't want him, doesn't know him, and doesn't respect him. Republican Ohio Congressman Warren Davidson reacting to the news Saturday, while President Trump's decision may prove just, it's hard to conceive a rationale that's constitutional. Even Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, she writes, every time America is on the verge of greatness, we get involved in another foreign war. And this is not our fight. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer publicly urging Majority Leader John Thune to immediately bring a war powers resolution up for a vote. A bipartisan effort is also underway in the House. Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is among a handful in her party who say ordering a strike is absolutely and clearly grounds for impeachment. With Democrats in the minority in both the House and Senate, any impeachment effort is certain to fail. Democratic leaders, including top members of the House and Senate Intelligence Committees, are also appalled that the administration only alerted Republican lawmakers before the strikes. On Tuesday, the CIA and other intelligence officials will brief members of Congress, and the Senate Intel Committee will gather for a closed meeting. On Capitol Hill, I'm Atra El-Nashar.
And Oregon political leaders issued statements following last night's news, with responses mostly divided along party lines. Oregon House Minority Leader Christine Drazen issued a statement saying Iran could not be allowed to obtain a nuclear weapon. I'm thankful for our brave servicemen and women whose successful mission protected so many. Senator Ron Wyden criticized the decision while acknowledging the strategic importance of preventing Iranian nuclear weapons development. Keeping a nuclear weapon out of Iran's hands and securing Israel's democratic future has always been crucial to America's national interest. However, Donald Trump's reckless attack on Iran without congressional authorization has raised the risks that every U.S. service member in the Middle East will be a target for retaliation. Representative Al Hoyle said in a statement that Trump's unilateral decision to strike Iran is blatantly unconstitutional. Hoyle added, there's a reason why the founders only gave Congress the power to declare war. The American people deserve a say in whether or not their children get sent into another foreign war. And the Jewish Federation of Greater Portland released a statement Sunday morning acknowledging last night's decisive action taken by the United States to dismantle Iran's key nuclear facilities, including the critical site at Fordo. The organization thanked the administration and the United States Armed Forces for this historic effort, while expressing hope that the parties will soon get to the negotiation table and find a peaceful, long-standing resolution to this conflict. And Vice President J.D. Vance, speaking on NBC today, insists the U.S. is not at war with Iran.
No, Kristen, we're not at war with Iran. We're at war with Iran's nuclear program, and we actually want peace. But we want peace in the context of them not having a nuclear weapons program, and that's exactly what the president accomplished last night.
The vice president's comments echo that of Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, who outlined the operation early Sunday. Hegseth says the mission solely targeted Iran's nuclear capabilities and that the U.S. currently does not want to force a regime change in Iran. According to Vance, such a decision will be left to the Israelis. And the UN Security Council met today to discuss U.S. strikes on Iran's nuclear sites. Russia, China, and Pakistan proposed the 15-member body adopt a resolution calling for an immediate and unconditional ceasefire in the Middle East. According to reporting from Reuters, the draft condemns the attacks on Iran's nuclear sites and facilities, but does not name the United States or Israel directly. A resolution needs at least 9 votes in favor and no vetoes by the U.S., France, Britain, Russia, or China to pass. The U.S. is likely to oppose.
I have repeatedly condemned any military escalation in the Middle East. The people of the region cannot endure another cycle of destruction. And yet, we now risk descending into a rat hole of retaliation after retaliation. To avoid it, diplomacy must prevail.
During the meeting, the U.S. called on the Iranian regime to halt what the U.S. called efforts to eradicate the state of Israel. Iran's ambassador to the United Nations says the U.S., quote, decided to destroy diplomacy. The Iranian ambassador saying the timing, nature, and scale of the country's proportionate response will be decided by its armed forces. The Trump administration has indicated the U.S. wants to renew diplomatic talks. Again, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth emphasized that America does not seek war with Iran. And Iran's parliament Sunday advanced plans to close the Strait of Hormuz. The decision, still pending further approval, will likely cause oil prices to spike. This because nearly 1/5 of the world's oil supply passes through the strait. The channel, located between Iran and Oman, is no more than 20 miles wide at its narrowest point. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is calling on China to encourage Iran to not shut down the strait. He's also further threatening consequences should Iran do so. And the world is watching how other countries and groups respond to the U.S. attacks on Iran. One of the biggest concerns, the Houthis in Yemen. The Houthis are a Shia Muslim terrorist group sponsored by Iran that emerged in the northern part of Yemen in the 1990s. They began a rebellion against the Yemeni government in the early 2000s. 2 years ago, the Houthis started attacking Israel. Last year, the U.S. and UK started carrying out attacks on the Houthis after the group sank several ships in the Middle East, seized another, and killed 4 crew members. This year, the U.S. officially declared the Houthis a terrorist organization and ordered a series of military strikes on them. The two sides reached an agreement where neither would target the other. But earlier today, the Houthis promised to attack U.S. ships in the Middle East if the U.S. entered the conflict between Israel and Iran. Well, the bombers that flew in yesterday's attack on Iran have returned home safe. The B-2 bombers landed at Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri after a grueling flight that required mid-air refueling over the Atlantic. A total of 7 bombers took part in the actual bombing, while more than 100 other aircraft flew a distraction mission to provide cover. None of the American aircraft were damaged in the attack.